If you have struggled with the Pomodoro technique, please do not take it personally. I consider myself a big fan and consistent user of the Pomodoro technique, but it has not always been easy. And in fact, I would say I still have trouble with it on occasion, but I found some tricks that really help me, so hopefully they help you too. So I think we can boil it down to 4 reasons that the Pomodoro technique might not work for you. If you think of more that I haven't thought of, please comment below, but I think that covers pretty much everything. So those 4 are that 1, you're not able to get started, at least not consistently. Number 2, you're not able to get back into work after the break is supposed to be over. Number 3, you just aren't getting enough done either per session or overall using the Pomodoro technique. And number 4, you're too stressed out by it. So let's go over those one by one because there's different techniques for each problem. So if you're having trouble getting started, it's likely a bit of a procrastination thing. And I know because I have dealt with this a lot, this is probably the one that I am the worst at, is just getting started. Now, one reason you might not be getting started is that you don't have a clear and easy way to start that Pomodoro. So if sometimes you use the timer on your phone and sometimes you use a designated Pomodoro app, sometimes you use a kitchen timer, you might have to make that decision every time of which one you're gonna do or where that app is, or maybe you don't even remember what app you used last time. That's not a good way to be able to quickly get started when it's the time that you have decided you're going to do a Pomodoro. Even if you're not an app junkie like I am, the point is to know exactly how you are going to start your Pomodoro and track the Pomodoro before it's time to get started. The second reason, it's hard to hear, it's hard for me to accept myself, but 25 minutes, which is the typical Pomodoro time, might be too long for you. And this is super counterintuitive, especially if you've heard that most people can focus for 90 minutes at a time and that that's the optimal amount of time for focus. And yes, a lot of studies have shown that 90 minutes is a great amount of time to focus, but there's a lot of contributing factors. For one thing, people that are able to focus for 90 minutes might be really used to the task that they're trying to do. It might be some kind of work or study that they do every single day. Now, if you're trying to use a Pomodoro for a task or a project that you're unfamiliar with, it includes a lot of figuring new things out that you're not familiar with. I don't know, maybe you have new editing software or whatever, a new subject that you're not even used to studying. When you're trying to do 90 minutes right off the bat, it can just be too frustrating and too draining, especially if you haven't built up that discipline to get started. I know it feels like anyone should be able to focus for 25 minutes, but trust me, it depends on the task, and even if it does seem like an easy task, even if it's one you're used to doing, you're not able to get started, then something is better than nothing. So please don't feel like you have to hold yourself to 25 minutes. It's less about losing focus during the session and more about what you're able to start. I mean, I guess it's actually both. If you're losing focus during a 25-minute session and you're not able to bring your focus quickly back to the task, then 25 minutes is probably too long. But I think it's also too long if you're not able to start the task because it's just too drooling. So don't be embarrassed. If it makes you feel any better, I do it too. The 25 minutes is a suggestion, and I really don't think that it's necessary. A final reason is that maybe you aren't clear on what kind of reward or just what you're going to do after the Pomodoro sessions are all over with. Often when we're procrastinating, we're fighting between start this project or do something else that we're tempted to do. So a technique that I like to use is I recognize what thing I'm tempted to do. Maybe I want to watch one more video on YouTube, or I want to go eat some food or something like that. So I identify that, and then I tell myself that after the Pomodoro sessions, I'm gonna get to do that and I'm gonna get to enjoy it guilt-free. And I find that deciding on a reward last minute is really helpful because often that's more what I'm craving at the moment or on the day than something I pre-plan ahead of time. One more thing is having a pre-work routine. I think this is a killer way to get started on any project because it's a lot easier to start the pre-work routine than to start the project, because the pre-work routine is probably kind of fun and relaxing, especially if you get into the groove of it and you do it often. Maybe you make a cup of tea, go to the bathroom, get comfortable, make sure you are warm enough or cool enough, put your phone on Do Not Disturb, close the door, things like that. I've actually made a full video about pre-work routines that I will link in the description. And these are so helpful because it gets those things out of the way that you're going to think, oh, I just gotta do this one more thing. It turns it into a routine, you knock them all out, and then you aren't tempted to do them before or during the session because you've already got them all out of the way and you're not sitting down and then thinking of one more thing kind of as a way of procrastinating. So the second reason is you cannot get back to work, and a lot of those same principles apply, but here are a couple other hints. So the most common thing I think you've probably heard, I know I've heard it a million times for this, is that your breaks are too fun. Don't go on social media. Don't watch TV. And yes, that's very true. I think you should take more boring breaks. Look out a window, take a little walk, take a breather, get something to drink. Don't do things that are super engaging, especially things like social media that are absolutely designed to get you hooked and not let you break your attention. But that's really common advice, and that doesn't always work even if we do that, or maybe we're just too tempted by the fun breaks. So a couple other things I like to do is to, again, think about the reward of what I'm going to get to do after all 3 Pomodoros are done. And I try not to just like do back-to-back Pomodoro sessions for hours. I think that's too much. Usually I do about 3 sessions, usually around 25 minutes with the little breaks in between, and then I'm done for a while. I get to do something genuinely fun and not another boring break. And as with getting started with your whole Pomodoro routine, if you can't get back into it after the break, again, your sessions might be too long. I really think you should decrease your sessions until you are able to stick with it and then slowly increase them from there, even if you're starting at 5 minutes per work session. What's important is getting into the habit and teaching yourself that you can be consistent with this and you can follow the timer and whatever you pre-committed to. Another problem might be that your breaks are too short, especially if you are doing boring things like going to the bathroom, getting a drink, maybe making another cup of coffee, but you run out of time. The problem this causes is that then you tell yourself, well, I will extend the break just a little bit because this last thing I need to do is actually important so that I'm going to be able to focus later. And that's probably true. But once you allow yourself one cheat, we'll say, it's a lot easier to keep talking yourself into more cheats. So make sure your breaks are long enough to get done what you need to get done as far as getting refreshed. That way you get into the habit of really sticking with the timer and being back at your desk and ready to go when that timer tells you it's time to work again. And this is a sneaky one. Another reason I have found that it's harder to get back into it is if you don't stop at the break timer. There's 2 reasons for this. One is if you're like me, you might try to justify a longer break because you worked longer. And that's kind of another spiral where once you justify one thing, you're going to keep justifying other things. Another reason is that if you work past your stop timer, you might get to a point where you're actually really drained. So it's easy, and then you hit like a hard wall of maybe something unexpected in the project that you don't know how to solve. And then you decide to, okay, well, I'll take the break because the timer went off. But then you don't want to get back into it because what's up next is a really hard part that was kind of a wall in the first place. So if you stop at that timer, it's going to be a much more random spot and likely more in between of a really hard part. And then you'll be able to get back into it more easily, almost like a cliffhanger in your favorite Netflix show. Number 3 is that you just can't get enough done during these Pomodoro sessions. I know a lot of people complain about this. So here's a couple tips. One thing is you can always increase it. If you can study or focus with whatever you're doing for 90 minutes or longer, then go for it. I think the beauty of the Pomodoro is the structure of work session, short break, work session, short break, and then a longer break at the end rather than having some set predetermined time. Another reason is that you don't like getting interrupted when you're in a flow state, which this is a pretty valid reason. And this kind of contradicts the point that I made about getting back to work, as you should stop right when the timer ends so that you are in an easy place when you come back to it. But if getting back into it isn't a problem for you, then consider using something like a sand timer that's going to be completely silent. One of my friends told me about this, and I thought it was brilliant because then when you kind of reach a lull and you need a break, you can look over and see, oh, I earned that break. It's okay to take a break now, but it's not some jarring thing that is going to distract your focus and pull you out of that flow state when you're on a roll. And the final thing that some people have trouble with the Pomodoro technique is I think they get stressed out. They're like, oh, the timer really stresses me out. It's too much of a time crunch. It's too much pressure. But I think that's kind of a mindset problem. So if you feel like you don't get enough done and you want to accomplish more in the Pomodoro sessions and stress is not a problem, then try to set yourself a little goal for each thing. Like maybe you're trying to write 400 minutes in this work session. 400 minutes. You're trying to write 400 words in this work session. But if stress is your problem, then absolutely drop that and tell yourself that the goal is just to focus as best you can during these 25 minutes or however long you choose to have your work session be. And do not set any goals of what you need to get done. Tell yourself that you can just keep doing these work sessions all day if you need to, with, of course, necessary breaks. The goal and the challenge here is just to calmly focus for that amount of time. And don't even be too hard about yourself for losing focus. I think the average human attention span is actually something like 3 minutes. I totally don't remember exactly, but there's a difference between being able to focus for 90 minutes and actually having your train of thought broken, which happens pretty frequently. So if that happens, it's sort of like meditation. Just calmly accept it, bring yourself back to the task, and don't beat yourself up. The Pomodoro technique is not for everyone and it's not for every type of task, and I think it's important to recognize that you can use different techniques and there's no shame in not being consistent, because the Pomodoro technique is a strategy. And for different tasks and projects, and depending on how our day is going, we might want to use different strategies, which is what my next video is about. I'm Jules. Thanks for watching and keep improving. Bye.